My sister Imani looked radiant in her ivory gown, all silk and crystals and 25-year-old certainty. I watched from my assigned seat at table 17, the family overflow section, tucked near the kitchen doors where servers rushed past with trays of champagne I couldn't afford to drink. The lakefront pavilion in downtown Chicago was everything a wedding venue should be. Glittering chandeliers, polished marble, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan's dark waters. The kind of place that whispered generational wealth and perfect beginnings. I'd left Zara with Kennedy 3 hours ago, my 5-year-old daughter's disappointed face still fresh in my mind. She'd wanted to come, to wear the burgundy dress we'd found at the thrift store, to see Aunt Imani get married. But Kennedy, my best friend and lifesaver, had convinced me otherwise. Formal weddings and kindergartners didn't mix well. Better to keep Zara home where she could watch her favorite movies and avoid the family scrutiny that would inevitably fall on me. The scrutiny had started the moment I walked through the doors at 7:30. Alone. 28 years old, single mother, wearing a fuchsia dress I'd altered myself from last season's clearance rack. The beading on the shoulders was my addition, done by hand over 3 evenings after Zara went to bed. My cousin Simone had glided past me in the receiving line, her designer maternity gown showing off an 8-month pregnancy that she wore like a crown. Her husband, my ex-husband, had given me a nod so brief it barely qualified as acknowledgement. Marcus. The man who'd walked out when the pregnancy test came back positive, claiming he wasn't ready for the responsibility. The man who'd somehow become ready 6 months later when Simone, with her lighter skin, looser curls, and wealthy parents, entered his life. The man who now stood across the ballroom looking like he'd never made the biggest mistake of his life. Meanwhile, I worked 12-hour shifts at Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago, came home to a daughter who asked why she didn't have a daddy like the other kids, and tried not to calculate how many extra shifts I'd need to cover next month's rent. Danica, darling, you came alone? My mother's voice carried that particular tone that managed to sound concerned and disappointed simultaneously. She'd appeared at my table during the cocktail hour, my father trailing behind her with the same uncomfortable expression he always wore when forced to acknowledge his daughter's failures. We'd hoped you might bring someone. There are several eligible men here from the Johnson family. You remember them, don't you? They own that investment firm. I'm fine, Mom. I forced a smile I didn't feel. Zara sends her love to Imani. Oh yes. The baby. My mother's use of the word baby for my 5-year-old daughter spoke volumes. Kennedy's watching her, I assume? Such a shame you can't afford real childcare. They'd moved on before I could respond, circulating among guests who actually mattered. Family who'd made something of themselves. My older sister Imani and her new husband. Cousins with graduate degrees and stock portfolios. And then there was me. The pediatric nurse who dropped out of medical school when she got pregnant, who lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood optimistically described as up and coming. Aunt Vanessa had been louder, settling into a chair at the next table over, close enough for her voice to carry. Some complexions are just harder to match, you know. It's not prejudice, it's just reality. The darker girls have to work twice as hard. She wasn't looking at me, but she didn't need to. Everyone knew who she meant. Dinner had been interminable. 7 courses of food I barely tasted while conversations swirled around me. The couple to my left discussed their vacation home in Martha's Vineyard. The woman across from me showed off an engagement ring that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. I smiled and nodded and wondered if anyone would notice if I left early. Then came the dancing. The DJ announced the couple's first dance, and Imani floated across the floor in her new husband's arms. My parents danced next, looking every bit the proud family. My older brother and his wife joined them. Even my younger cousins paired off, laughing and spinning under lights that cast everything in soft focus. Outside the windows, clouds had gathered over Chicago's skyline. The weather forecast had promised clear skies all weekend, but nature had other plans. Thunder rumbled in the distance, barely audible over the music. Within minutes, water began streaming down the glass in sheets, turning the city lights into abstract streaks of color. That's when I noticed him. He stood near the bar, apart from the crowd, but somehow commanding attention anyway. Tall, maybe 6'3", with dark hair perfectly styled and a body that suggested he spent serious time somewhere between a gym and actual combat. His suit was navy and immaculately tailored, the kind of quality you didn't find in department stores. But it was the tattoos that caught my attention first. Intricate designs climbed his neck from beneath his collar, disappeared under his sleeves, wrapped around his hands with the confidence of someone who didn't care what polite society thought. But it was his face that held my attention. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could have been carved from stone, and eyes that, even from across the ballroom, seemed to see straight through every defense I'd spent years constructing. He was watching me. Not subtly. Not with the passing curiosity of a stranger at a wedding. He was studying me with an intensity that should have made me uncomfortable, but instead sent a completely different kind of shiver down my spine. I looked away first, heat rising in my cheeks despite the air conditioning. When I glanced back, he was speaking with someone from the groom's family. I recognized the older Martinelli brother who owned several restaurants throughout Chicago. They exchanged a few words in what looked like Italian, and then the stranger began moving through the crowd, toward me. My first instinct was to run, to grab my clutch and make some excuse about checking on Zara. But something kept me frozen in my seat at table 17 while he crossed the ballroom with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in his entire life. He stopped at my table. Up close, he was even more striking. Those eyes I'd noticed from across the room were hazel green, almost luminous in the chandelier light. The tattoos were religious imagery mixed with what looked like family crests, Italian, definitely, and expensive. The kind of ink that took years and thousands of dollars to complete. He smelled expensive too. Bergamot and leather and something darker I couldn't name. "You've been sitting here trying to disappear," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent that made me think of old movies and Mediterranean coasts. "That seems like a criminal waste." I stared at him, caught between offense and something dangerously close to flattery. "Excuse me. Your name is Danica." He pulled out the chair beside me without asking permission and sat down, the movement fluid and practiced. "Sister of the bride. The one who came alone to a family wedding where everyone else is paired off. The one who's been checking her phone every 15 minutes, probably thinking about leaving." The observation was so accurate it stole my breath. "You don't know anything about me. I know that man who was with the pregnant woman, your ex-husband, I'm guessing, said something to you earlier that made you want to disappear into the floor. I know you've been sitting at the overflow table like you don't belong here when you're easily the most interesting person in this room." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Am I wrong? That's very presumptuous of you." I set my phone down, suddenly aware of how transparent I must be. "I prefer observant." He extended his hand. "Nico Esposito. Friend of the Martinelli family. They invited me. Business associates." I took his hand, and his palm was warm against mine, his grip confident without being aggressive. The tattoos on his hands were intricate up close, what looked like a family crest wrapped around his knuckles, religious imagery on his fingers. "Danica Hayes." "Danica." He said my name like he was tasting it, the Italian accent making it sound somehow more elegant. "I have a proposition for you." This should have been where I made my excuses and left. Where I remembered I was a single mother with responsibilities and bills and no room in my life for mysterious strangers with neck tattoos and dangerous eyes. Instead, I heard myself say, "What kind of proposition?" Nico leaned closer, his voice dropping low enough that only I could hear over the music and conversation. "Dance with me. Pretend to be my wife for the rest of the evening. Let everyone here see that you're not alone, not pitted, not forgotten, not less than." I stared at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. "You want me to pretend to be married to you? To a complete stranger? Why not? It solves both our problems." His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in those hazel green eyes. "My family is relentless about wanting me to settle down. Your family clearly enjoys reminding you that you're single. We could help each other. One evening. Then we go our separate ways." "That's insane." "Perhaps." He stood, offering his hand again. "But the next song is starting. And your ex-husband is watching us from across the room with a very interesting expression on his face. You haven't stopped twisting that napkin since I sat down. So what do you say, Danica? Will you dance with me and let everyone think you belong to someone who actually sees what he has?" The smart answer was no. The responsible answer was no. The safe answer was definitely no. But then Marcus started moving toward our table, Simone's hand on his arm, both of them wearing expressions that promised another round of subtle cruelty. And I was so tired. Tired of being pitted. Tired of being the cautionary tale. Tired of sitting alone at overflow tables while everyone else celebrated their perfect lives. I took Nico's hand and stood. "One dance. That's all." His smile was devastating. "We'll see about that." If you are still listening and feel this story touching something inside you, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, to like and share this video so we can continue bringing heartfelt stories every day. And if it isn't too much to ask, would you tell me where you're watching from? Leave a comment below and let us know which corner of the world this story has reached. We treasure every word you share with us. Nico led me onto the dance floor with the kind of confidence that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times before, claimed women, commanded rooms, bent situations to his will. His hand settled at the small of my back, warm through the thin fabric of my fuchsia dress, while his other hand clasped mine with surprising gentleness. For a man built like he could break things without effort, his touch was remarkably controlled. "You dance well," I said as we began moving to the music. He moved like someone who'd been trained, each step precise and effortless. My mother insisted on lessons when I was young. She believed a man should know how to lead properly. Something flickered across his face when he mentioned her. She passed away 2 years ago. Breast cancer. "I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate, but they were all I had. "She would have liked you." Nico's hazel green eyes met mine. She had strong opinions about women who could stand on their own feet. Who didn't need a man but chose one anyway. "Is that what you think I'm doing? Choosing you?" I couldn't help the slight edge to my voice. "We just met. This is pretend. For now." His hand pressed slightly more firmly against my back, guiding me through a turn. But pretend has a way of becoming real when two people are honest about what they want. I should have pulled away. Should have reminded him this was temporary, a single dance to save face. Instead, I found myself moving closer, drawn by the warmth of him and the way he looked at me like I was worth looking at. "You're not fine," he said quietly, echoing his earlier observation. "You're miserable and trying very hard not to show it. Your daughter, Zara, 5 years old, loves drawing. Asks why she doesn't have a daddy. You work 12-hour shifts at the hospital and still can't make rent without calculating extra coverage. And you're exhausted from pretending you're not drowning. My breath caught. How do you? I pay attention. His thumb traced a small circle against my back. And I'm very good at seeing what people try to hide. The song shifted into another slow melody. Around us, couples continued swaying, but I was acutely aware of only him. The bergamot and leather scent, the controlled strength, the way those tattoos disappeared beneath his collar like promises of dangerous things hidden just below the surface. One evening, I whispered. That's all this is. Nico's smile was devastating. We'll see about that, Danica. Marcus found me near the bar after the dance ended. His timing calculated for maximum damage. My pregnant wife who's carrying my legitimate child, he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Unlike the mistake that cost you your medical degree. The words about Zara being a mistake landed like physical blows. I should have slapped him. Should have caused a scene. Instead, I stood frozen while he rejoined Simone, who placed a protective hand on her rounded belly and smiled across the room. A victor's smile that said she'd won everything I'd lost. I sank into my chair at table 17 and tried very hard not to cry in front of 200 people who already pitied me. Outside the windows, Chicago's weather shifted. Rain began streaming down the glass in sheets, turning city lights into abstract streaks of color. The DJ announced more dancing, and everyone paired off. My parents, Imani and her husband, even younger cousins spinning under soft lights. I sat alone, watching everyone else belong while I existed on the margins. The storm is getting worse. Nico's voice pulled me from my spiral. Let me drive you home. In the privacy of his SUV, sleek and expensive, with a driver who raised the partition without being asked, Chicago's rain-soaked streets provided unexpected intimacy. I expected small talk. Instead, Nico made his pitch. The evening worked. Both our families bought it. Marcus looked jealous. Your mother stopped making cutting remarks the moment I sat beside you. He turned to face me. Continue this arrangement. A few weeks until both our families back off. Then a quiet breakup. No one gets hurt. Everyone gets relief. That's insane. But even as I said it, I was considering. Think practically, Danica. You need breathing room from family expectations. I need the same. We help each other. I have a 5-year-old daughter, I said finally. She can't know about this. I won't confuse her with fake relationships. This stays between adults, Nico agreed immediately. And if either of us wants out, we walk away. No drama. Of course. He retrieved a business card from his jacket, black cardstock with silver embossing. Think about it. Call me if you decide. The SUV pulled up to my building. Nico walked me to the door despite the rain, waited until I was safely inside the lobby. Watching his vehicle disappear into Chicago's stormy night, I studied the card in my hand. I should throw it away. Instead, I tucked it into my clutch and headed upstairs, already knowing I was going to make a terrible decision. The alarm at 6 a.m. yanked me back to reality. I dropped Zara at kindergarten, fought traffic to Lurie Children's Hospital, arrived for my 12-hour shift with 3 minutes to spare. The pediatric ward greeted me with familiar chaos, beeping monitors, worried parents, antiseptic smell. My phone buzzed constantly. Cousin Tosha. Girl, call me. Need all the details. Imani. Mom is losing her mind. Who is he? Even my mother. We need to discuss Saturday night. Around noon, Marcus appeared in the hallway outside the nurses' station. He shouldn't have gotten past security, but Marcus had always been good at talking his way into places he didn't belong. "We need to talk. Now." He blocked my path. "Who is Nico Esposito?" I've been asking around. Nobody in Chicago's medical community has heard of him. The vein at his temple throbbed. "Is he paying you? Some arrangement where he gives you money and you show up pretending to be his girlfriend?" The suggestion, essentially calling me a sex worker, cut deep. "I've never taken a dime from you or anyone else. I work for everything I have. Everything Zara has." "Then what does he want from you?" I pressed the emergency button. Security appeared. Marcus left with a parting shot. "This isn't over. I will find out what you're hiding." That evening, Kennedy arrived for our weekly dinner tradition, bringing Chinese takeout and questions. "Everyone's asking if I knew about this Nico person you're apparently dating." I explained, one night, a favor, pretending so my family would back off. "Nobody does favors like that for strangers," Kennedy said. "What does he want?" She left at 9:30. I was cleaning the kitchen at 10:15 when heavy knocking interrupted. Not friendly, but insistent, threatening. Through the peephole, I saw two men in dark clothes. One had a tattoo creeping up his neck. Danica Hayes. The taller one's accent was Russian. "We need to talk about Nico Esposito." "I don't know who you're talking about." The second man held up his phone, an image from the wedding. Me and Nico on the dance floor, looking like we belong together. "You're his woman. That makes you someone Mr. Volkov is interested in." "We're friends. And if you don't leave, I'm calling the police." "Call them. We'll be gone before they arrive. But we'll be back, Danica Hayes. And next time, we hope you'll be more cooperative." They left. I stood frozen, heart hammering. I pulled Nico's card from my wallet and dialed. He answered on the second ring. "Danica. Two men just came to my apartment. They had photos. They mentioned someone named Volkov." Silence. Then, "Lock your door. I'll be there in 15 minutes. "Nico, what's happening?" "I'll explain when I get there. Keep Zara close." 14 minutes later, he arrived with a man built like he could bench press cars. "This is Matteo," Nico said, scanning my apartment. "Tell me exactly what they said." As I recounted everything, his expression darkened. "The Bratva. Russian organization. Someone sent them photos, told them you're connected to me." "Connected how? We barely know each other." "They don't care about facts. They care about leverage." He spoke rapid Italian to Matteo, then turned back. "This is my fault." Matteo confirmed, "They've already decided your leverage. Real or not doesn't matter." I sank onto my couch. "What happens now?" Nico knelt in front of me. "Now I keep you safe. You and Zara both. But you need to trust me. Can you do that?" I looked into those hazel green eyes. "Yes. I trust you." Nico's Gold Coast penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a building with an address that probably cost more than I'd make in 20 years. The elevator required a key card just to access the penthouse levels. When the doors opened, I stepped into a space from an architectural magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, modern furniture in neutral tones, art that was definitely not prints. "Guest rooms on the second floor," Nico said, gesturing toward a floating staircase. 3 bedrooms, all with private bathrooms. "Kennedy, there's a room for you as well." Kennedy looked between us. "I'm staying too." Until we're certain the threat has passed. Anyone connected to Danica is potentially at risk. I adjusted my grip on Zara's bag. How long are we talking? Days. Weeks. I have to work. Zara has school. I've already arranged coverage for your shifts. Nico cut me off gently. You're on paid family emergency leave for 2 weeks. Zara's school has been notified. A private tutor will come daily. You had no right to do that without asking me. I had every right to keep you alive. His hazel green eyes held mine. This is my world, Danica. My rules. And my rules say we don't take chances with civilians caught in crossfire because of decisions I made. Zara stirred in my arms. Nico's expression softened immediately. Let's get her settled. We can argue in the morning. The bedroom was twice the size of my apartment living room. Zara's eyes opened briefly as I laid her on the king bed. Where are we? At a friend's house, baby. We're having a sleepover. She was out again within seconds, clutching her stuffed giraffe. Nico stood in the doorway, watching us. She's beautiful. She has your eyes. I tucked the blanket around her shoulders. She has her father's everything else. At least she got his cheekbones. He stepped into the room, moving with surprising quiet for someone his size. He stopped beside the bed, looking down at Zara with genuine interest. 5 years old, I said. She'll be 6 in March. Smart. Top of her class in reading. Loves drawing and dinosaurs and asking questions I don't always know how to answer. Like what? Like why her daddy doesn't come see her. Why some kids have 2 parents and she only has 1. I smoothed the blanket one more time. She stopped asking as much after Marcus remarried. I think even at 5, she understood that ship had sailed. Nico's jaw tightened. He's a fool. He's a lot of things. Fool is probably the kindest. Morning arrived with Zara already awake, exploring the penthouse with fearless curiosity. A pediatrician came at 10. Nico appeared halfway through the exam, asking intelligent questions about Zara's vaccination schedule and whether her recent cold had fully resolved. You remember I mentioned a cold? I asked after the doctor left. He handed Zara a tablet loaded with educational games. You told me she'd missed school 2 weeks ago. At the wedding. I pay attention when people tell me things. 1 week after the wedding, Matteo appeared in Nico's study where I'd been reading while Zara napped. His expression was grim. We've identified the leak. The source of the photos. The one who told the Bratva about Danica. Nico stood from behind his desk immediately. Who? Her cousin. Jamal Hayes. He's been working with the Russians for 6 months, feeding them information about families they might leverage. When he saw the wedding photos on your aunt's Facebook, he recognized an opportunity. My stomach dropped. Jamal? My cousin Jamal. The one who'd asked to borrow money at Thanksgiving and gotten angry when I'd said no. Who never could hold a job, whose gambling problem everyone whispered about but never addressed. Matteo continued. He told the Bratva about your relationship with Nico. Even mentioned it started as pretense. But Dmitry Volkov, their leader, decided you were still useful leverage regardless. The betrayal cut deep, not just that Jamal sold us out, but that he specifically targeted family. Where is Jamal now? Nico moved to the window. That's the other problem. The Russians have him. They're holding him as insurance. If we move against them, they'll kill him to send a message. I sat down heavily. Jamal. Stupid, gambling-addicted Jamal who used to push me on swings when we were kids. who'd hugged me at my mother's birthday party and said he was proud of how I was handling single motherhood, who apparently sold me out to dangerous criminals to cover his debts. We can't just leave him there, I heard myself say. Even if he's an idiot, he's still family. Nico turned from the window, expression unreadable. He put you and Zara at risk. Family doesn't end where loyalty begins, Danica. His voice was cold in ways I hadn't heard before. Maybe not. But it doesn't end where stupidity begins either. I looked up at him, holding his gaze. What would your mother have wanted you to do? Rosa, who you said valued family loyalty above everything. The question landed. Nico's jaw worked for a moment before he turned to Matteo. Set up a meeting with Volkov. Tell him I want to discuss terms. That's exactly what he wants, Matteo warned. He'll use it to push for concessions. I know. But we're going to give it to him anyway. Nico's eyes met mine. Because apparently, I'm developing a conscience at the worst possible time. He crossed to kneel in front of me. But Danica, this meeting will be dangerous. You should stay here where it's safe. My response was firm. They used me as leverage. I should be there when you negotiate my freedom. These are not people who respond to moral arguments. Volkov built his empire on violence and intimidation. Then he needs to see that intimidation doesn't work on everyone. That I'm not just some pawn to be moved around. I leaned forward. You said your mother believed in women who stood on their own feet. Let me stand. Friday evening arrived cold and threatening. I dressed carefully, jeans, boots, a leather jacket Nico loaned me that smelled like him. Kennedy stayed with Zara, armed with emergency contacts. Before we left, Nico pulled me aside. If things go wrong, Matteo will get you out. You do whatever he says. Understood. I nodded, though we both knew I wouldn't run if it meant leaving him behind. The warehouse sat in Chicago's industrial district. Concrete and rust. 2 black sedans already parked outside, men leaning against vehicles with casual menace. We stepped into air that tasted like metal and old grease. If you are still listening and feel this story touching something inside you, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, to like and share this video so we can continue bringing heartfelt stories every day. And if it isn't too much to ask, would you tell me where you're watching from? Leave a comment below and let us know which corner of the world this story has reached. We treasure every word you share with us. Volkov leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, the posture of a man who'd conducted hundreds of these meetings and always gotten what he wanted. What we started as doesn't matter. I spoke before Nico could respond, my voice steady despite the terror coursing through me. You're using me to pressure him. That makes me part of this conversation. The younger Russian, Alexei, laughed. Volkov silenced him with a look that could freeze fire. Bold, Volkov said, eyes never leaving me. Your cousin Jamal said you had pride. Do you know where Jamal is now, Danica Hayes? He pulled out his phone, showed us a photo. Jamal in a basement, bound to a chair, face bruised, eyes swollen. He owes us $47,000 from gambling debts. We offered him a way to work it off. He gave us information about your family. About this wedding. He swiped to another photo. Me and Nico on the dance floor. Beautiful photos. You look very happy together. Volkov pocketed his phone. Jamal made his choices. But you, Danica, you are between me and Mr. Esposito. And that makes you valuable. So let's discuss terms. You have territory in the financial district that we want. 3 blocks. You give us those blocks, We release Jamal, and we forget about using pretty nurses as leverage. No. The word came from me before I'd consciously decided to speak. Both men turned to look at me with identical expressions of surprise. You don't get to threaten people's families and then negotiate like that's reasonable behavior. I stood, adrenaline overriding every survival instinct screaming at me to stay quiet. You came to my apartment. You threatened my home where my 5-year-old daughter sleeps. My hands braced against the table, leaning forward. You're holding my cousin who made terrible decisions but doesn't deserve whatever you're doing to him in that basement. You've made me feel unsafe in my own home. What kind of men threaten children? What kind of organization builds power by terrorizing women in their own homes? The warehouse went silent except for distant traffic sounds outside. You think you can shame me? Volkov's voice remained level, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I'm not trying to shame you. I refuse to look away from those cold eyes. I'm telling you I'm not afraid anymore. You wanted me to be leverage? Well, congratulations. You've shown me exactly what kind of people you are. And I'm telling you right now, I'd rather watch everything fall apart than give you 1 inch of what you want through fear. I was shaking, but my voice remained steady. You don't control me. You don't own me. And you sure as hell don't get to use my daughter as a threat. Nico stood slowly, positioning himself slightly in front of me, protective without undermining my stand. My woman speaks for both of us. But I'll offer you something better than capitulation. His voice carried that silk-over-steel quality I was learning to recognize. You want territory? Take the 3 blocks in the financial district. But in exchange, the Bratva agrees to a formal peace treaty. No more civilian threats. No more kidnapping cousins. No more showing up at apartments where children live. Volkov looked between us. You would give us what we want. Where's the trap? Nico's expression remained neutral. No trap. Those 3 blocks are scheduled for major redevelopment. Commercial property values are about to tank when the city announces new zoning laws next month. You want them. Take them. Deal with the headache when they become worthless. Meanwhile, we establish clear boundaries. You stay on your side. We stay on ours. And civilians remain off limits for both organizations. Long silence. Volkov studied us both, me still standing despite shaking hands, Nico positioned protectively but letting me stand on my own. Finally, Volkov stood. Your woman has courage. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. He looked directly at me. My wife Kotia was like you. Spoke truth when others stayed silent. I was smart enough to keep her. To listen. He extended his hand to Nico. We accept your terms. 3 blocks. Peace treaty. Civilians are off limits. I woke to sunlight filtering through unfamiliar windows, disoriented until memory flooded back. The warehouse, Volkov, the kiss in the SUV. I'd returned to find Zara sleeping peacefully, Kennedy dozing on the guest room couch. After assuring Kennedy everything was fine, a lie we both recognized, I'd finally fallen into bed around 2 a.m. Now it was 8:30, and I could smell coffee brewing downstairs. Pulling on the robe hanging in the bathroom, I found Nico in the kitchen already dressed despite the early hour, making pancakes while Zara sat at the island chattering about her movie night with Auntie Kennedy. Nico looked up when I entered, and the heat in his gaze made me acutely aware I was wearing only a borrowed robe. Morning. Coffee's fresh. His voice was casual, but the tension between us was palpable. Zara, oblivious to adult complications, bounced in her seat. Mom, Mr. Nico is making the chocolate chip ones. Can we stay here forever? I really like it here. The innocent question landed like a bomb. I met Nico's eyes over Zora's head, seeing my own uncertainty reflected back. After breakfast, once Zora was occupied with her tablet and Kennedy had taken her coffee to the terrace, Nico approached me in the living room. We need to talk about what happens next. He gestured toward the couch, waiting until I was seated. The Bratva threat is neutralized. The peace treaty is holding. Matteo confirmed this morning that Jamal was released from the hospital. Broken ribs, some bruising, but he'll recover. Which means you and Zara are safe to return to your normal lives. The words should have brought relief. Instead, they felt like a door closing. That's one option, Nico continued. You go back to your apartment, your shifts at the hospital, Zara's school. This whole thing becomes a story you tell someday about the crazy week you spent in a mobster's penthouse. He paused. Or. My heart hammered. Or what? He sat beside me, careful not to crowd. Or I can offer you another option. Matteo has contacts who specialize in creating new identities. Clean documents. New city. New life. I can set you up somewhere far from Chicago where neither Marcus nor anyone from my world can touch you. Financial security. Fresh start. Everything you'd need. I stared at him. You're offering to make us disappear. To get us away from you. The realization hurt more than it should. Nico's jaw tightened. I'm offering to give you a choice that doesn't involve staying near danger just because you feel obligated. Or because we kissed in the back of an SUV after an adrenaline rush. His hazel green eyes held mine. I brought you into this mess, Danica. The least I can do is give you a clean exit. I understood suddenly. He was offering me freedom because he loved me enough to let me go. Before I could respond, Zara appeared from upstairs, hair wild from playing. Mom, can Mr. Nico teach me to draw buildings today like he promised? She climbed onto the couch between us, small and trusting and completely unaware of the adult complications swirling around her. Nico's expression softened immediately. After lunch, Principessa. I promise. The Italian endearment made my chest tight. The shift passed in familiar rhythm. For checks, medication rounds, comforting a 4-year-old with pneumonia. Around 2 p.m., I was updating charts when my supervisor pulled me aside. Danica, there's someone here asking to speak with you. Says it's about your daughter. My stomach dropped. Who? She looked uncomfortable. Marcus Mitchell. He's in the main lobby. Security won't let him up to the ward without authorization, but he's insisting it's urgent. I descended to the main lobby, my heart hammering. Marcus stood near the information desk, wearing the expression of righteous concern he'd perfected. Danica. Thanks for coming down. I know you're working. His tone suggested reasonableness, but his eyes were cold. We need to talk about Zara. I kept my voice level, professional. There's nothing to discuss. You've had 5 years to be part of her life. You chose not to. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I made mistakes. I admit that. But I've changed, Danica. Simone and I are about to have a baby. It's made me realize how much I've missed. How much I want to be part of Zara's life. The manipulation was transparent. He'd never mentioned Zara in 5 years, but suddenly the impending birth of his legitimate child had sparked paternal feelings? That's touching. File for visitation through proper channels. Have your lawyer contact mine. Marcus's reasonable mask slipped. I've been doing research on your boyfriend, Nico Esposito. The Esposito family has been tied to organized crime in Chicago for 3 generations. Protection rackets, illegal gambling, worse. He pulled out his phone, showed me printouts of news articles, police reports. You're exposing my daughter to criminals, Danica. That makes you unfit. The possessive my daughter, after 5 years of absence, would have been laughable if it weren't so threatening. Your daughter. My voice rose despite my attempt at control. You walked out when I was pregnant. You married my cousin. You've never paid a dime of support, never asked to see her, never showed the slightest interest in being her father. You don't get to suddenly care about her safety when it's convenient for your moral superiority. Several people in the lobby were watching now. Marcus noticed. Recalibrated. I care enough to protect her from making the mistakes you're making. Getting involved with dangerous men. Ruining her future the way you ruined yours. He continued. I've already filed preliminary paperwork for a custody evaluation. My lawyers are preparing a full brief documenting your inability to provide a stable, safe environment. The mobster boyfriend will be Exhibit A. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Stay away from Esposito, Danica, or lose everything. Your daughter. Your job once they realize you're fraternizing with criminals. Your whole carefully constructed life. The words hit their target. Every fear I'd harbored since Friday night, that loving Nico would cost me Zara, that his world would be used against me, that I'd have to choose, crystallized into sharp reality. Marcus saw me falter, pressed his advantage. You know I'm right. You know any judge will side with me once they hear about your living situation. About the men with guns providing security. About your 5-year-old sleeping in a mobster's penthouse. That won't be necessary. Nico's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. He emerged from the elevator with Matteo beside him, both men moving with that predatory grace that made people instinctively step aside. Marcus's face paled. This is harassment. I'll call security. Nico's smile was cold. Please do. I'd love to explain to hospital security why you're threatening my girlfriend in her workplace after she specifically asked you to leave. 3 weeks after Imani's wedding, 3 weeks that felt simultaneously like a lifetime and no time at all. I stood in the penthouse bedroom I now shared with Nico, zipping Zara into a burgundy velvet dress. The fabric was soft, expensive, nothing like the thrift store finds we used to buy. Where are we going again? I asked for the 3rd time, adjusting the delicate gold necklace Nico had given me last Tuesday. My birthday, which I'd mentioned once in passing and he'd somehow remembered. Zara bounced excitedly. It's a secret, Mom. Mr. Nico said I have a very important job tonight and I can't tell you what it is. Nico appeared in the doorway, devastating in a charcoal suit that made his hazel green eyes even more striking. You both look beautiful. We drove to Esposito's on Astor, his flagship restaurant in the Gold Coast, the one with a Michelin star and a 6-month waiting list. But tonight was different. The entire 2nd floor was reserved, string lights woven through exposed brick walls, candles flickering on every surface. And waiting inside, my family. Imani rushed over immediately. Danica. I'm so glad you're here. Nico said this was important. My parents stood near the windows, my father actually smiling. Cousin Tosha was there with her husband, even Aunt Vanessa. Kennedy emerged from the kitchen entrance, grinning. Surprise. What is this? I looked around, seeing table settings for 15 people. Nico's hand settled at the small of my back, that possessive, protective gesture I'd come to crave. Celebration. New beginnings. A chance for everyone who matters to be together. His voice carried something I couldn't quite identify. Trust me. It had become our phrase, the question he asked before anything important. Yes. The meal unfolded in courses that showcased the chef's mastery. Nico had seated me at the head of the table, himself to my right, Zara to my left. My family surrounded us, conversation flowing easily in ways it never had before. Imani leaned across during the fourth course. You look happy. Really happy. I don't think I've seen you like this since. I don't know if I've ever seen you like this. It was true. Despite everything, the Russian mob, Marcus's threats, the constant awareness of Nico's dangerous world, I was happier than I'd been in years. Maybe ever. He makes me happy, I admitted quietly. Dessert arrived, individual chocolate soufflés garnished with gold leaf. Kennedy caught my eye from across the table, raised her wine glass in silent toast. Even my mother smiled warmly. Before we could indulge, Nico stood, tapping his wine glass gently. The room quieted. Before we indulge, I have something I need to say. More accurately, something I need to ask. His eyes found mine, and my heart stopped. Around the table, knowing smiles appeared. Zara bounced in her seat, unable to contain her excitement. 3 weeks ago, Nico began, I attended a wedding as a business obligation. I expected mediocre food and forgettable conversation. Light laughter rippled through the room. Instead, I found Danica, sitting alone at overflow seating, trying to be invisible when she deserved to be celebrated. Cherished. His gaze never left mine. I saw a woman who'd been told she wasn't enough, by circumstances, by an ex-husband who didn't deserve her, by a world that measures worth in all the wrong ways. And I knew immediately she was extraordinary. He moved to kneel beside my chair, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. My mother gasped. Imani's hand flew to her mouth. Kennedy's eyes filled with tears. Danica Hayes, I'm not offering you a fake arrangement anymore. I'm offering you everything real. My world, my heart, my protection, my family name. He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the candlelight and threw rainbow fractals across the table. Will you marry me? Before I could find my voice through the tears, Zara bounced in her chair. Say yes, Mom. Say yes so I can do my special job. But the real question is, when the moment we have been running from finally stands in front of us, do we step toward it, or do we step back into the shadows that have kept us small for so long? Danica's story in this chapter isn't just about a proposal. It's about a woman who spent years believing she was unworthy, suddenly being asked to believe she deserves everything she once thought was impossible. And Nico, the man the world calls dangerous, the man everyone warns her against, becomes the one person who finally sees the truth she spent decades hiding. But what about you? After walking through her journey, through fear, betrayal, protection, danger, and unexpected tenderness, have you ever been in a moment where your heart wanted to say yes, but your past kept whispering no? Have you ever stood at a crossroads like Danica, wondering if choosing joy meant risking everything familiar? Or whether love from the wrong person might actually be the love your soul has been waiting for? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might be the connection someone else needs tonight. And if this chapter pulled at something deep inside you, if it reminded you that even the broken deserve miracles, please remember to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe so you never miss the stories that heal, provoke, and stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Thank you for staying to the very end. May your days be gentle, your nights peaceful, and your choices guided by courage. Goodbye, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.